The Dandenong Ranges Botanical Gardens is in the hills beyond Melbourne. This is a fantastic example of a cool climate garden, and it's stunning in every season. On some of the higher vantage points, there are views of the surrounding valleys and mountains. Other vistas are framed by the towering mountain ash, the tallest flowering plant in the world. But the garden's main drawcard is its massive collection of over 25,000 rhododendrons and azaleas. And it's spring when you really should come to see them in action. Absolutely magnificent. The slopes are alive with vibrant colour. The garden was previously called the National Rhododendron Garden, and it was established by the Australian Rhododendron Society in the 1960s. And while it's now maintained by Parks Victoria, community involvement has kept the collection thriving. Ranger Terence Moon, who's known as Tex, is taking me around the huge 40-hectare garden. What is it about rhododendrons and azaleas that people so love?
It's the wow factor. They're big, they're showy, they're colourful, and I think that when you dig a bit deeper, it's the diversity of the genus. You know, it really is a large, complex and rich genus of plants with, you know, trees that can be up to 30 metres tall, right down to the smallest alpine shrub.
Amazing, and then you've got the epiphytes as well.
That's right, epiphytic rhododendrons that cling on to tree trunks and tree fern trunks for survival.
Amazingly diverse.
Very diverse.
The Australian breeders of rhododendrons need some credit, don't they?
They certainly do. They've created some great hybrids that work well in our conditions. There's My Snow White, which is a small, compact, white flowering rhododendron. There's the Waghorn Wonder, that's a beautiful pink, large trusses of flowers. And then there's this one, which is actually called Freckle Pink.
And why did they breed them? What was the purpose?
So you can imagine that the early hybrids that came to Australia were bred for European conditions. So they tended to flower later in spring to avoid frosts and snowfalls. Whereas in Australia, we have hot summers. And so we needed them to flower earlier to actually give them a longer season before the summer scorch would hit them.
Yeah, and that's what they've done.
And that's exactly what they've done. Early flowering.
And look at the bees, they love it.
They love it, yeah.
Yeah. It's another factor that people don't really recognise about rhododendrons. Many of them are fragrant.
They are. Yeah, and this one in particular.
It's a beautiful smell.
It is.
And you can sort of smell it from about a metre away too. It's always nice to have that.
Yes, yes, it's a surprise as you're walking past.
That is a stunning thing though, isn't it? A mountain of white with a little bit of cream. Beautiful. I can remember these rhododendrons. They were like mountains. They were way out to here. You've cut them back a lot.
We have cut them back. You can see these ones, we've cut them back quite a long way.
Yes. So you can really cut them down to sort of knee-high and then let them shoot again.
You can. As a general rule, the rough and flaky-barked rhododendrons will respond well to a hard prune, whereas the smooth-barked ones tend to take a little bit more care.
Yeah, but they will respond.
But they do respond.
Yeah,
that's right.
Don't think you can't prune a rhododendron.
No, definitely.
Look at that.
Yeah, and this is what you get rewarded with, is this lovely metallic new growth at the start of the season.
That's a beauty. Lacebug is a common problem on the back of the rhododendron leaves. How do you cope? What sort of processes have you got?
Well, it's a long-term approach, essentially. Once upon a time, we would have just done broad-spectrum insecticide. We've tried to move away from that to a much more holistic approach. We're planting things like rosemary and mint and salvias and penstemons, trying to encourage bug diversity with plant diversity.
Yes, and so that they'll go and hopefully get rid of the lacebug.
Yeah, that's right. You know, encouraging your predator bugs for the pest bugs.
And it's working okay?
Look, I think so, yeah. Look, as I said, it's a long-term strategy. It's a big garden, but it's something that will, over time, improve and improve.
These are different kinds of rhododendrons, interestingly.
Yes, they are. So these are the VIREYA group of rhododendrons. So they're much more equatorial. So a lot of the Asiatic sort of rhododendrons and European ones, all northern hemisphere. These ones grow around the equator in places like New Guinea and Solomon Islands, Malaysia, but way up in the mountain tops.
Now, I noticed one up here is a beauty.
It is a beauty. That's a must-have VIREYA for any home garden. That's Rhododendron tuba with that great white flowers with the long trumpets.
Unusual. Up in the nursery, there are some young examples of an Australian VIREYA.
So here, Jane, we have Australia's very own Rhododendron lockii. So these were collected from the mountaintops up in northern Queensland, so from the wet tropics, but up in high altitudes. Above about 950 metres they come from.
They can really take quite cold, can't they?
They can. So they're actually quite well climate matched to here down in the mountains in Victoria.
So the area that these grow in, that's quite a vulnerable area.
It is a vulnerable area. You think about the mountaintops up in the wet tropics, really subjected to the impact of climate change. These plants are as high as they possibly can go, and they can't go any higher to find any cooler weather, so really under threat. These are here as a backup to the wild populations. Each mountaintop is represented here, so heaven forbid we ever need it, we have a backup in ex situ conservation collections.
Oh, that's really good. So you'll plant these out into the garden?
They will be. We'll propagate from these. They'll be planted out in the garden, but they'll also be distributed amongst other botanic gardens around Australia as well.
So you've got that true genetic diversity.
We've got true genetic diversity, yes.
We are so lucky to have gardens like this, places that are safeguarding important collections, but also just spending an afternoon walking around a spectacular garden like this is surely good for your soul.